Lucifer was once a bright and exalted angel. As the highest ranking angel, Lucifer grew arrogant and in the end he disobeyed God. God in turn banished Lucifer to hell, and Lucifer became Satan. Satan, who was once a bright, powerful, and good angel, all of a sudden became the embodiment of evil. This transformative arc of Lucifer is the reason why Philip Zimbardo, a psychologist, coined the term the Lucifer effect. The Lucifer effect is a theory that tries to explain how a good person in situational forces can in turn do evil and vile acts under the right circumstances. Philip Zimbardo is most known for the Stanford Prison Experiment. The Stanford Prison Experiment is an experiment that took place in 1971 at Stanford University. The purpose of this experiment was to study how institutions can affect an individual's behavior. In this case, it was the prison system. In order to do this, Zimbardo put flyers all over the university and promised $15 a day for a 2-week study. Over 70 people turned up, and according to the article by Alexander Haslam, Zimbardo and his research team chose 24 of the healthiest people there. Of the 24 people, they were randomly assigned a role of prisoner or guard. On the first day, those who were assigned the role of prisoners were arrested by real cops, and they were taken to the basement of the psychology department where the study was taking place. Once they got there, they were given an ID number and they were given their prison uniform, and the prisoner uniform was like a dress-like piece of fabric, and they had chains on their feet, and the guards had mirrored sunglasses so that there would be no eye contact between them. In the first 36 hours of the experiment, one prisoner was already showing signs of extreme distress and anxiety that he had to be released early. Things that the guards would do to the prisoners would be yelling obscenities at them. They would make them do push-ups for however long they wanted. They would make them do a count-off. They would make them clean the floors and the toilets with their bare hands. They would make them simulate sodomy. And on the second day, there was a rebellion. When it was time for their 2:30 a.m. wake-up call, the prisoners decided to just stay in bed. And in turn, the guards got mad and started to blow the fire extinguisher at them. They took their beds out and they made them take off their clothes. And there was this room called the Hole, which was solitary confinement that the prisoners would go into if they were behaving really badly. So that took place over the course of the next 5 days, where there was just a lot of emotional abuse mainly. The guards weren't allowed to touch the prisoners, which is why most of the abuse was very between the prisoners. There's a lot of emotional and psychological abuse going on. On the 5th day, there was a PhD recipient named Christina Maslach who came to look at the study, and what she found was very bad. She confronted Zimbardo about it, saying that the experiment was getting out of control and he needs to stop it because the prisoners were being abused. And the funny part about this is that Zimbardo, who was supposed to look at the study, gave himself the role of a prison warden, and he was acting more like a warden rather than a psychologist. So he too was getting the effects of the institution. He decided to terminate the experiment. So on the 6th day, the experiment was over and they were all able to go home. The mental state of the prisoners was, by the end of the experiment, the mental state of the prisoners was really, really bad. They felt like actual prisoners with actual crime, but they felt like actual prisoners who committed actual crimes. And the prisoners, Zimbardo didn't tell them to. Zimbardo told the guards to act however they wanted, and in turn the guards decided to act abusive, aggressive, and very bad. I guess this just goes to show that the roles that they were playing, the mind conformed to the roles that they were playing, and in turn the prisoners were getting abused, the guards were being very aggressive. And the reason why is because the guards weren't used to being in this position of power, so once they got that power, they decided to abuse it. So that is one example of the Lucifer effect. Another example is the events that happened at Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib is a prison in Iraq, and in 2003, the CIA and the military committed multiple human rights violations against the prisoners there. According to the article called Abu Ghraib: The Legacy of Torture on the War on Terror, 70 to 90% of the prison population were people who were wrongfully detained, so they were largely innocent. Some examples: the reason why they were getting abused was because the CIA wasn't getting any information out of the prisoners about the insurgency that happened at the time. So in turn, the CIA allowed the military to abuse them, basically. They gave them permission to abuse them. So things that they would do would be they rape them, they sexually abuse them, they physically abuse them, they psychologically and mentally abuse them. They would make them take off their clothes. They would make the prisoners do sexual acts towards each other. There are multiple photos of this event that the military took, and there's thousands of photos online that you can go see if you're curious. But there is a photo of a soldier taking a picture next to a dead corpse. There's a picture of this soldier dog walking a prisoner who is naked. They would put feces all over their body, and just really horrible things that happened. And when these crimes came to light, the Bush administration said that it wasn't the institution's fault, it wasn't the system, but rather the individual person. But Zimbardo disagrees and says it was actually the system who put those people in power to abuse the system. 11 soldiers were convicted of the crime, and this basically just goes to show, if you give people power without supervision, it's an authority for abuse, which is exactly what happened at the Stanford Prison Experiment and what happened at Abu Ghraib. So in the end, the Lucifer effect is a theory that tries to explain why a good person can in turn do evil acts. The CIA and the military, who are supposed to help people, were given power without authorization, without supervision, and in turn abuse the people. The Stanford Prison Experiment gave regular college students the role of a prison guard and gave them that power, so instead they decided to abuse it.